Hey everybody, Tony D and Little Joan here with a hot take. California judge orders video journalist to pay $13.6 million to Planned Parenthood. Now, I live in New Jersey where abortions are free and legal. Well, they're not free, I guess, but they're everywhere. But Planned Parenthood, I don't think it's a very good organization. I mean, if we're going to be doing a lot of judging by people's past, I think the past of Planned Parenthood should definitely be called into question. I also think that, it's a very personal decision. And yes, you should get information so you can make an informed decision. But I feel like Planned Parenthood tends to take a position that it should not be taking. And of course, there was a video journalist who exposed that Planned Parenthood was actually harvesting and selling aborted baby parts to pay the abortion giant. And that seems very wrong. It seems extremely wrong. I don't think most people would be like, yay! I think they'd be like, ew. And the fact that journalists had to pay this, now I think it's going to be overturned on appeal. But, these are journalists doing what journalists do. And these are very partisan journalists doing it. Freely admit that. But it also seems to be a very partisan judge, which does not seem right. It's one thing to be a partisan journalist. That's perfectly legal, and, it's not, I don't think it's great, but it's legal. It's not legal to be a partisan judge, in my view. And we have too many partisan judges. This judge went through a lot of trouble, it seems, if you read this article on Breitbart, to make sure Planned Parenthood would not only win this case, but win it big. Now, I think, again, it's going to be overturned in appeal because it seems like an excessive amount of money. They were only asking for $2 million in damages, and the judge awarded them 13.6. I don't know how he came up with that number. But the fact that Planned Parenthood had lied regarding their sale of aborted fetuses seems like reason enough that they should have been videotaped and exposed. Now, if you look at the laws, and this is an interesting thing just for your own edification, not all states can you record someone. Okay? According to the Wisconsin-based law firm Mathesian, Wickert, and Leher, 38 states in the District of Columbia allow what's known as a one-party consent for recorded conversation. Either person over the phone can be one of those parties. So if you want to record someone and you live in one of those states, it's fine, as long as you're in the conversation. If you record two other people having a conversation and you're not part of the conversation, well, then that's wiretapping. You're listening in to a phone call, and that is illegal. But if you're having a conversation with someone and you want to record it, that's perfectly fine in 38 states if you're in the conversation. Now, in 11 states, and keep in mind, I'm not a lawyer. I'm reading off a law website. 11 states, you need multiple party consent or two-person consent law, meaning everybody in the conversation. Those include California, Delaware, Florida, Illinois, Maryland, Massachusetts, Montana, weird, Nevada, also weird, New Hampshire, Pennsylvania, and Washington. Is that 11? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah. So take note if you ever want to record a phone call. And I believe Vermont doesn't have a consent law either way, so it considers itself a one-party consent law because wiretapping is illegal, and if you're not in the conversation, it's considered wiretapping. And my understanding is there is an exception in at least some states and don't quote me because I'm not a lawyer, there is an exception if you know that one of the parties is going to commit an illegal act or talk about an illegal act or something like that. I'm not exactly sure. And it may not be all the states. But, yeah, and there's some differences between each state that has those two-party consent laws. So, depending on what state you live in, you should know the law if you're planning on to record a conversation between you and another person and they don't know. You know, and it's also about the expectation of privacy, I believe. So if you're in your own home and someone comes to your home, I don't know if they have an expectation of privacy unless you lie to them. If you're in a public place, same thing. They don't have an expectation of privacy. But if you're in a private phone call, that's a little different. But most of these laws, I think the two-party consent law is really about trying to shore up the laws for people who commit these crimes. And usually these are not elitists, but, you know, people who are rich. People who are gaming the system. And they want to keep that, they want to keep gaming it, so they don't want to be caught. I'm glad New Jersey's not on the list. I thought New Jersey was a two-party state, but apparently it's not. So it's good to know for me that I looked this up. Finally, right? Finally, I'm doing a little research. But I do think it's wrong that these journalists have to pay anything, even if they're biased journalists. They're still doing work here. Look, if a biased journalist from BuzzFeed or Slate gets some Republican on tape saying something sleazy or wrong or whatever, that's on him, man. That's on him for being dishonest or shifty or sleazy or whatever. It's the same thing with Project Veritas. Yeah, Project Veritas, you could probably say leans right, but they're doing good work, and they have caught Republicans on tape. They caught that Republican in Texas during their ballot harvesting bonanza, I'll say. Man, they got so much footage. They got so much footage you can't even watch it all on Project Veritas. They got the CNN morning meetings. They're just a nightmare. They're probably at least 25% responsible for the eventual demise of CNN. And I look forward to that. I look forward to CNN just going right off the air. It's not doing anybody any favors at this point. It's actually doing harm, in my view. But it doesn't surprise me that this is a California judge, because California, totally a two-party state regarding recording people, and this must just be phone calls. Now that I look at it, no, it says recording laws. So, you know, it doesn't surprise me that a judge would think like that. I mean, California is really it's just collapsing, you know, and it's been collapsing for quite a while. It just seems like, you know, back even when Arnold Schwarzenegger was running the state, it just seems like they had nothing but problems. It was so expensive to live there, and people were just, I can't live here anymore. You know, how are these people going to have a functioning society in 5-10 years when they still have taxes through the roof, and they don't have anybody to, you know, wash the cars or do the grunt work? I just don't see it happening. You know what a plumber must cost in LA, or somebody who does actual work, like a carpenter, or, I mean, it must be through the roof, the amount of money you must be paying through the nose for people like that, because that's the only way they could survive, is to charge outrageous prices to rich people who are the only people left in California, I guess. But even some of those people are finally wising up and getting the hell out. So I don't know what's going to be left in California. I guess lawyers, lawyers and celebrities who didn't get the memo. But I think this is going to be overturned in an appeal, and it's just a shame that government has to get involved with something as personal as an abortion. You know, it's just such a tough choice for someone to make, and it shouldn't be this politicized. People should be left alone to make their own decisions. As hard as they are, they're already hard to make. I can't imagine somebody having to go through this nonsense and then learn that their fetus was sold off. Just seems, well, kind of sick.